Hi all, I've got my good friend Paul Georgiou here today. I've just shown him my fantastic wins earlier on the ICC, which he's greatly impressed with.
Absolutely, apart from the second one.
So you, Paul, you had a great tournament over the weekend. You won some quick play yourself?
It was a couple of weeks ago, Triff. I won Born End.
Ah, and what sort of rating performance on the ECF scale?
I think it was 236.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. So I nearly tied with you in that match, that 5-minute match the other week. It was no 3-minute, wasn't it? It was 10-9.
10-9, very close. Very even match.
So there's this news story today, which we were going to look at some Capablanca games, but this news story on ChessBase for the second time now. Various media agencies are going a bit crazy about this. Apparently, this Ukrainian chess master called Andriy Slyusarchuk. How would you pronounce that, Paul? Andriy Slyusarchuk. It's almost like Invenchuk, but Slyusarchuk. No,
I would say Slyusarchuk.
Okay, very good. So apparently he beat Rybka 4 in a 2-game blindfold match after reading 3,000 books on the subject. What's what's your initial thought on this, Paul? Do you think it's a trick? He can't. No one can do that. No one can beat an engine blindfold. They might have been able to do it 30 years ago, like Nigel Short apparently beat a computer blindfold. But that was what was that computer again? Mephisto, was it?
Sargon.
Sargon. All right. So, but it couldn't be done today against Rybka, surely.
I'm very dubious. He's not even a known player, is he? Does he have a rating?
I'm not really sure, yeah, but he's a professor though. He is apparently a professor, and apparently he's been doing other stuff like all these digits of pi. He beat the world record, so he's in the world record books now for memorising digits of pi as well, to show feats of memory, and he's memorised all these thousands of books apparently as well. So this is very, very interesting. Has he tapped into... a lot of people think we don't use a great percentage of our brain, and maybe... Is it possible he's tapped into a greater percentage of the brain? He's a super genius.
I very much doubt it.
Okay, let's try and see his game as white and try and decipher it. Okay, so e4 in the first game, he was white. And Rybka played c5, Sicilian defence, and now we see knight c3, e6. So now he just plays knight f3. Okay, so he's still got the option for d4, and in fact he uses that option now to open up the centre. So open Sicilian, queen c7, and now move. Weren't you saying you used to play this, Paul? G3.
I used to play G3 because it's quite untheoretical, relatively.
Right, and you don't have to be worried so much about this pin, which is potentially nasty. This pin variation.
Not really, no.
That's pretty cool. That's something to bear in mind, because this kind of worries me that when black just moves the e pawn as if they're going to pin your knight. So it's not too much of a worry here if you play g3 then. So a6, and now bishop g2, knight f6, castles, and now Rybka apparently played d6. So we see rook e1. Now rook e1 is providing an X-ray attack on the king here, which means that potentially there's knight d5s if the king's is not too careful. But sorry, Paul.
I believe also in this position, if black plays bishop e7, white can take on c6 and then play e5.
Blimey, really? Bishop d7?
No, bishop e7.
Bishop e7. You think knight takes c6?
Yes, I think this has been seen. B takes e5.
Ah, this is what the Houdini engine likes this as well, Paul. So here
they just retake with the rook.
Wow, because then there's bishop takes c6 check.
And white has a better structure.
A better structure after winning back the rook.
Well, I mean, black doesn't take on e5 because he's just a pawn down.
Right.
But if he doesn't, then white will have a better structure.
Cool. So e5 here. So if knight d5, you would knight takes, c takes, e takes. Let's follow this.
D5 is on prise.
Yeah, queen takes d5. Okay, so that's pretty cool stuff. So this is already pretty good moves from white. So bishop d7. Oops, sorry about that. Knight takes c6. Bishop takes c6. And apparently, some sources are saying usually if Rybka's given his opening, but b takes will be played here. That seems to be the better move according to Houdini fractionally. B takes rather than bishop takes c6. It seems bishop c6 doesn't do anything now against this idea, this tactical idea, knight d5. So is white cementing a small advantage here? It's 0.4 and it doesn't seem to go away, and he's playing blindfold incredibly against one of the strongest engines. So Rybka takes on d5 now.
Yes, this is a tactic with a positional basis. White end up with a very bad looking bishop on g2, but he'll have a queenside pawn majority which can be pushed, and there's a weak pawn on b7 which can be attacked.
Right, if he gets this pawn on d5, it would be like those king's engine positions with more space as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of pressure. But there's something quite magical, isn't there? We've reviewed this game very briefly before talking about it. There's quite magical about his rook movements, isn't there, in this game coming up?
Well, there's a very interesting rook maneuver coming up, which I certainly wouldn't play.
So bishop takes d5, e takes. So white has that 4 to 3. Well, this pawn majority here, and this bishop's potentially better than this bishop. So e5, and now we see this strange move, rook e3.
This is very unusual. Normally you would think of pushing the queenside pawns, trying to break with b4 and c5, but actually he's playing to attack the queenside pawns with his pieces. Yeah, which is quite unusual. Pieces in front of pawns. It's very computer-like, almost like rook e3. It was in this computer match actually. Rook e3 was played against, I think, Kramnik as an innovation. I think ChessBase mentioned, but in one of their articles. So bishop e7, rook c3, kicking the queen away from c7. Okay, and now a4. So there's restraint occurring on black's queenside pawns. Well, it seems that white just has a long-term idea of just putting a pawn on a5 and pressurising b7. Yeah. With a rook from b4 and a queen on b3. And maybe a bishop on e3 to tie up these squares as well. Yes. So castle's a5, so he's tying up b6. These pawns, and this bishop's not looking too healthy. So black looks depressingly, I would say, passive and devoid of much exciting counterplay here. Wouldn't you say black has a passive position here at move 16? Yes, really wants to get something going on the king side. He wants to get his f-pawn rolling down the board. But as soon as he does that with f5, f4, e4 will be weakened for the bishop. The bishop could just park there, and if f3, f3 is always going to be a liability if black tries to play too crudely. F5 and f4, but something like knight e8, f5, and maneuver then e4 and maneuver the knight round to e5. E5, yeah. Which will take quite some time. Yeah. But yeah, the way it played it looked like a depressing game actually. The way black was just ground down from this position. So rook c4 doesn't really do anything. It's kicked back to c7, and now bishop e3. So again, more and more restraints against black's queen side. And now this really strange move, which matches Houdini's first choice. And we were both wondering what the purpose of this was. This next move, rook b4. Well, we found out, didn't we? The idea was to play c3 and queen b3. Oh, of course, yes. It's vacating b3. So c3 and queen b3. Yeah, in retrospect, we can deduce that. I guess he needs to be able to put more pressure on b7. So he needs to create a battery against b7. So c3 and queen b3 will provide that, and also keep hold of d5 as well. So that would be an ideal place for the queen b3 now. Yeah. Yes. So e4, as though maybe black is trying to get counterplay, bishop g2, but now the e4 pawn is put under pressure. Well, bishop g2 is a good move because it attacks the e4 pawn again, stopping black from moving his pieces and freeing them with, say, knight g4. Yeah. And now we see c3 offering. Is the d5 pawn being offered here, or is tactically losing? Bishop e4. E4 is on breeze. But then knight takes e3. Shall we have a quick look at that? Knight takes d5. Oh, rook takes e4, not bishop takes e4, because bishop e4, knight e3, yeah? Yeah, rook takes e4 looks good. Just to make sure, yeah. Oh, that's still better for white anyway, according to Houdini. But rook e4's strongest. With a pin on the e file as well. And if knight e3 here, rook e3, so white's bishop will be really dominating on this diagonal. White's got good control of d5.
this bishop's really passive, and maybe even white can just use the e file here. So basically, it still seems very depressing for black. It's like black didn't really have much counterplay so far. Would you say that there wasn't really much counterplay to write home about? So queen b3, putting more pressure on b7, queen h5.
Well, this was with ideas of knight g4 with counterplay.
Right, but now he just plays rook e1. Okay.
I think this is simply, if now knight g4, then just h3.
Should we have a quick look at that? Yeah, knight g4, h3.
And now if you take on e3, then rook takes, then e4 is about to drop.
Yeah, and this is no f5?
Well, then b7 drops
Oh,
instead.
b7. This is really painful for black, this whole position, isn't it? It seems, what has black done wrong? But he's been systematically strangled on the queen side. And he's given himself back, Rybka rather, has given itself, basically now queen takes d5, going into a miserable ending, where this bishop is going to be superior to this one. Isn't it a strange game that an engine like Rybka is totally positionally outplayed? I wonder if, what do you think is going on here? Do you really think this really happened?
I have no idea what happened, but I remain extremely dubious.
But this does look as though it was a thoroughly depressing game so far from black's angle, as if that we've gone into an ending with black just being worse in this ending now.
But I'm wondering, is this ending lost?
Okay, so, well, knight takes e3 was played here, rook e3. Well, Houdini likes it by 0.42 here, and I intuitively think it's very comfortable after that bishop d5, that huge bishop in the centre, with pressure on b7 and f7. The rook can swing if necessary to put more pressure on f7. So now he gives up a5 as well with that move. It's because he's going to get f7 back. So he plays c4, gives up a5, and plays rook f3. And now here, would it have been possible? I suppose b6 was played, but b5, is that terrible or much the same? I suppose it's much the same. So Rybka apparently played b6. So we have check, and now bishop takes g6, actually winning material. So why didn't the king say go here? Would that have been terrible?
But then bishop d5 threatens rook f7 winning a piece.
Oh yes, yes. Also bishop e6, just the same idea. Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't win a piece, does it? But
okay, that's very unpleasant.
h8 seems a safer square.
So he's a pawn up now, but it's opposite coloured bishops. So does black have any hope for a draw? Well, it seems the engine is getting again systematically crushed in this endgame, being pushed back, losing another pawn. Okay, but equal on pawns, but white's qualitatively better here, apparently by 0.69 according to Houdini. So equal on pawns, opposite coloured bishops.
Well, connected pawns are obviously stronger than
yeah, these guys are connected.
Also, white's bishop is better than black's bishop.
Yeah, massively improved.
And actually, black's king may be in
some
danger.
Target for tempo gains as well. And check, check. So rook on the 7th, even higher quality. So these pieces are optimal. The rook's cutting off the king. This king's ready to come in. These pawns are ready to run. So everything's of higher quality than black's here. The pawns are of high quality. The bishop's of higher quality than this bishop. The rook's of higher quality. Would you say everything's virtually of higher quality? So even though it's equal material, black's totally like lost.
I think black's lost here. White's pieces are on ideal squares.
What a thoroughly depressing game. And he's losing. Rybka's losing a pawn there. And now the king's coming in. So okay, the rooks have come off, but we've got these two connected passed pawns, and the king is still far superior. And here Rybka resigned, realising it's totally hopeless. So what a game. I found the game sort of depressingly clinical in terms of not giving Rybka any counterplay, and just ending up in this terrible endgame.
Well, I would say it's the sort of game that Rybka would play as white against a strong grandmaster.
Yeah.
Rather than the other way around.
and he's doing this blindfold as well.
Yeah, what's his video rating again?
Well, apparently he's done all these other feats of like memory, like memorizing pi. Funny enough, last night on ChessCube, I was playing someone called I Love Physics, who was saying he's studying a PhD and he's only about like 12. I don't know if we're getting some super geniuses or something, or I don't know. But no, I beat this guy last night in most games anyway.
Well, on the internet, you can be whoever you like. That's one of the problems of the internet, isn't it? Don't believe everything you hear on the internet.
Yeah. So I don't know. Is it possible that with all his feats, there's some other trickery we don't know about? Like, was that guy who does lots of tricks? Was it Darren Brown? He did.
Darren Brown.
Darren Brown, yeah. He did a simul, didn't he? And he plugged players into each other as though they were playing other GMs. So it was like a GM versus simuls. But he did this trick.
Well, the grandmasters were playing each other, weren't they?
Mm.
He was white in half the games and black in half the games. That's a very old trick.
Yeah, and he just needed to beat one person genuinely. He needed to be good enough to beat one person only.
Yes, and this person was not a person I've ever heard of before or since.
Ah, really?
He was not the grandmaster or a master at all. I failed to find him in the grading list.
Yeah. So okay, let's just check this. I mean, this does seem as though black was devoid of any counterplay. And this ending was just totally depressing.
Actually, it seems to me that possibly black's fatal mistake was E4, which is committal, and maybe if black just sits there and tries to hold it.
So we'll go back to this position. In fact, our Rybka here, no, Houdini is giving H6 or Bishop D8. It does seem E4 is very committal. Strange.
E4 is dynamic, but really black should be playing for a draw.
Shall we check with... I've got Rybka as well. Let's just put Rybka here as a different kibitzer. So deep Rybka 4. Is it really suggesting E4 here? Oh, it did flash by E4, but that was... Oh, now 0. Rybka is suggesting E4. Strange. So E4, and after Bishop G2, Queen F5 is on the list. Queen F5 here. After C3, Bishop F8 is definitely on this. It does seem like Rybka, in fact. Black. It does seem genuinely to be Rybka. These moves are coming up in the list, aren't they? These moves from black. And our Rybka here on this machine.
Some of them are.
Yeah, so I don't know. Odd game. A kind of depressing game from the black point of view of not generating counterplay. And he drew the second game after with black, so he won this 2-game match. Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.